I remember one experience we had with this guy. We weren't able to show up one day, or at least a few of us weren't able to show up, and he had actually asked for work off that day because he knew we were going to be there. Yeah, so that was like a crazy experience. He's like, "Where were you guys yesterday?" Like, "Oh, that was the one day we don't go out." And he was like, "Oh, come on, I didn't go to work for you guys."
People of Christ in the City, people everywhere around the world, this is David Christopher Pacheco.
Hi, my name is Kimmy.
My name is Arthur Ortiz. Been in Denver since 1973.
Okay, so let's just talk in circles for a little bit.
Talk in circles, just shoot the breeze a little.
You know, they see beyond what I look like. They see what my actions are and say, hey, that is a good person.
A lot of people say home is where the heart is, but my heart's in many places. It's just I don't know where home is.
Welcome back to Homeless But Human. Here with you today is Blake as we continue our summer service series with two of our missionaries, Fenton and Olivia. Welcome to the podcast crew.
Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
So as a little intro to the Summer of Service series, we share about these locations we go all across the country for 3 weeks where we send our missionaries to lead other volunteers, young adults, to serve the poor in these communities, to live in community amongst themselves, and to engage the greater area, the greater, community and locals in this mission of encounter, this mission of service to the poor from community. So with that, we have a very special episode as we have been going to this location for years, Gary, Indiana, the Diocese of Gary, Northwest Indiana, right? I'm getting my cardinal directions right.
Yep.
So Fenton and Olivia, I love it. Welcome to the podcast. I want to start with Olivia here because Olivia actually was a summer missionary in Gary, and I don't know if you fully requested, but desired to lead this. So share a little bit more about where that came from and the realities of that.
Yeah, totally. It was an incredible opportunity for me. So my story with Christ in the City kind of started over Sauce in Gary. So I was studied abroad in Ireland in 2019 in the fall. And Dublin, I was living in Dublin. That was the first big city that I'd ever lived in because I came from a rural area in North Carolina. And I went to school in a rural area in Maryland. So Dublin, it was the first time I lived in a city. And I was walking past homeless people every day on the way to class. And just kind of encountering that poverty every day really made a big impact on me. And when I came back to the States, I wanted to do some sort of work with the homeless. And I remembered Christ in the City because I had a friend who did it when she graduated college. And I looked up the website, and it was a pretty website. So I was like, I'll apply for a summer service.
Thank you for communications
You're
team.
welcome.
Shout out to the communications
Beautiful
team.
Website. And so, I applied for a summer of service, not really knowing what it was, not really knowing what Christ in the City was, except for, the word homelessness was associated for me. Yeah, so I applied for a summer of service, and I got in, and I went in the summer of 2021. So that was the first time we'd been in the Diocese of Gary. And I didn't know I was going to Gary. At the time, it was advertised as Chicagoland.
Chicagoland.
So I thought I was going to Chicago, but I was happily not.
Whoops.
Yeah.
But a happy whoops.
Exactly. And technically, it is the last stop on the train to Chicago. So it's technically within commuting distance of Chicago. I think you can call it Chicagoland.
Can stretch it a little bit there.
Yeah, I think that's totally legit. So so I went to Gary. We stayed in Michigan City, and those 3 weeks that I spent with the Year of Service missionaries and the other saucers and seminarians from the diocese just changed my life. I had incredible experiences in the ministry, even though we didn't go into Gary that year because it was our first one. We stayed in Michigan City.
And that was still COVID, right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty hard to get into places. It was a little tricky.
Yeah. Ministry was definitely weird. It was unusual. It wasn't the normal Christ in the City experience. But despite that, I left my summer of service with more of a desire to pray. That was the big thing for me. It was like, I had more of a desire to pray than I ever had in my life. And I had really felt the Lord move in my heart, which is not something I'd experienced, even though I've been Christian my whole life. So it deeply changed me, and I desired community. I desired to continue the mission of Christ in the City. And it was my experience over Sauce and Gary that caused me to apply to be a full Year of Service missionary after I graduated college. Yeah.
Love that. So then from that experience, you became a missionary. And then how did that go internally? Because last year you were not sent to Gary, you were sent to Lincoln for our summer service there.
Loved Lincoln.
Yeah, you did love Lincoln.
So much fun.
But you wanted to go back to Gary.
Yes, I did. I kind of wanted to go back last year, but I was happy to go to Lincoln as well. I wanted to go back to Gary because it was just, it seemed very right to me to give back to the community that has basically given me the last 2 years of my life, to go back to the same house that we stayed in 2021, to kind of relive the memories there, to see the same volunteers and locals. I have friends there still from when I was a saucer in 2021. So to reconnect with them and see them again. And the experience of leading sauce is very different from being a saucer. And so it was definitely challenging and very new for me, but it was just such a privilege to be able to go there and say thank you to God for everything he's done in my life since then.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. When we look at the community of Gary, right, it is such a special place for so many reasons, but that is not how it's talked about, right? I mean, so as all the Notre Dame crew, right, any Notre Dame alums or students we talk to, it's like, don't stop and gas at Gary, don't stop for gas in Gary. It's just known you don't do that. Right, you Google Gary, and unfortunately, it's like the most miserable city in the United States pops up. I think they won that last year, and it's a diocese, the Diocese of Gary, who desperately wants to serve the people there, and are in many ways. So from that, Fenton, how did you what was your thoughts and reality going into this?
Yeah, well, my initial reaction, I didn't really know anything about Gary.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, it was good. I only knew from the song, from the Music Man, just the Gary, Indiana song. And I remember calling my parents and talking oh yeah, I'm going to Gary. And oh, Gary? Really? Are they sending you there? And I was yeah. And then kind of heard more of the story and more people talked to me about it. I was oh, this place does not have the greatest reputation. So I was a little bit nervous, but I was also excited to kind of see what it would be like because I really had no idea.
Yeah.
But then hearing the story of Gary, we had a priest there told us the entire story of what happened, the history of Gary, how it got to where it is now. And it was really beautiful to just see the difference in the way that people see Gary and what Gary actually is.
Oh, I love that. How we perceive a place versus what it is. So what did you guys find there? Right? What did you guys find there when you went?
I'd say we found quite a bit. Like I said, I hadn't ever been to Gary myself because when I was a saucer, we didn't go to Gary. We stayed in Michigan City. So it was a new experience for me in that sense. Going into Gary for the first time on our scouting trip, I was shocked, when you first go to the city, it's scary. There's a lot of abandoned buildings. It's a very, very empty feeling place. You can just tell how many people were there and then how many people left and kind of the drama of that and the abandoned things, the blight is the technical term, right? It's just, you see that everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere. So that was very, lots of an impression on me when I first went and made me nervous for ministry, kind of being downtown, walking the streets. We were in Gary this year. Yeah, I was completely surprised by the experience. And I'm sure, Fenton, you'll be able to talk more to this too. But my street team that I walked, my sauce team was the team that actually walked the downtown area. So the main street in Gary. And so we were moving around the most in the town. And I almost compared it to my experience in Lincoln, funnily enough. Yeah. Even though there's two very different places.
Totally.
But I'm sure, Gary was a very dangerous place back in the day, and it has a reputation for a reason. But the people that we met in Gary, they already had a community amongst themselves. The people that were left in Gary were people who either were really committed to staying to Gary, they loved Gary, they wanted to be there, they were invested in making Gary better. Yeah. The friars at the cathedral, and even the locals, they had community with each other because their community was all that they had. Yeah. And it was also, so they were very open to meeting us, to getting to know us, to inviting us into their community. And they were also a people of prayer. This was something that surprised me in particular. I've been a missionary in Denver for 2 years. So I've had a lot of experience kind of meeting the locals here, talking to the homeless here. And I never heard the phrase God bless, or I'll pray for you, or praise the Lord, more than I did in the 3 weeks that I was in Gary. Everyone there, many of the people there that we met had a sense of a relationship with God. And they actually wanted us to come because they saw us as being associated with God.
No way.
Our missionary identity was something that helped us there. kind of leading with Christ first. And they wanted to pray with us. They wanted to ask us about our relationships with Jesus. They wanted to tell us about theirs. And so that was a really surprising as well. Like, yeah, I felt like I was being invited into a deeper relationship with God, with the people that I was there with. And I didn't have to kind of translate myself away from the faith or approach things differently.
It was almost more prevalent than ministry in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I had a very similar experience. Actually, now that you mentioned, I didn't really think about it until now, but I think almost every single conversation I had, people like, "What are you doing here? You know, who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, we're missionaries." Like, "Oh, okay, good. You're spreading the good word." I'm like, "Yeah, no, you can say it like that."
Okay, good. Yeah, exactly. We don't get that much, folks.
Right.
Okay, good. What? Do you mean that?
But yeah, no, it was a really beautiful experience because I was also in Gary. I was on the other team in Gary. We went to a homeless shelter there, and it was a really cool experience of like being able to be integrated into their community. And so it wasn't so much us inviting them into like ours, but more them inviting us into theirs. And you could see over the course of the few weeks that we were there, that each and every time we went there, people were more inviting to us and more welcoming of us in their community and welcoming us as friends. Like at first it was very standoffish. They would say hi, be polite, and be like, "Okay, you're cool. You're like Jesus people. All right." But then later on, it was really cool to see the relationships evolve to become like true friendships.
Which makes sense though, right? So in a place like Gary, which whether they'd say it or not, like the world views it as mission territory, right? Like whether it's government assistance or Christian organizations, right? Like it's mission territory.
Totally.
And that's a lot of one-time things, which again, to all our listeners out there, we're not saying that's wrong. Please come volunteer with us once at Lunch in the Park. But there is a beauty, there's a deeper level of consistency, right? And do you think you guys saw that of like, yeah, you showed up the first time, they were pleasant, but like the fact you kept coming back and they saw that this wasn't a one-time, even though it was only 3 weeks, this wasn't a one-time thing.
Yeah, no, I think so. And you could tell people like wanted us to stay too. I wanted to stay, honestly. I wanted to move Christ in the City to Gary because there was just so much good that came from the just 3 weeks we were there.
Yeah.
Like we had our lunch in the parking lot. It was very similar to what we do here.
Lunch in the parking lot.
Oh yeah. That was like one of our last weeks, but everyone was asking when we were going to do it again, if it was going to happen next week. So there was like the desire for this consistency, you know, these continual conversations, these continual relationships for sure.
Yeah, I totally second that. Like people just kept asking like when we'd come back, like if we'd come back in a few months or next year, or, if we'd be there like even next week. So there was a deep desire for consistency and a desire for deeper relationship that made leaving Gary very hard for us.
Yeah. And actually even adding on to that, there was, I remember one experience we had with this guy. We weren't able to show up one day, or at least a few of us weren't able to show up, and he had actually asked for work off that day because he knew we were going to be there. Yeah, so that was like a crazy experience. He's like, "Where were you guys yesterday?" Like, "Oh, that was the one day we don't go out." And he was like, "Oh, come on, I didn't go to work for you guys." So,
oh man,
yeah.
But that just shows for that longing for friendship. Right, that longing, and that isn't something just in Gary. Sometimes we feel it more in locations like that, but like, my goodness, like, what a remarkable thing. And then you're probably like, you felt bad and also were like, dang it, don't do that, man. Go to, it's like, what a testament. So share a little bit more about Lunch in the Parking Lot. So to all those listening, we do our Lunch in the Park in Denver and Philly weekly, and then every second Saturday of the month, right? It's on Wednesday. We go to the cathedral in Philly and a local park in downtown Denver. And we just go there and we truly invite regulars. It's a moment the greater community and the poor can come together is one, right? Where our volunteers eat with the poor. It is right. It's not a handout. It's truly a meal together. So what was Lunch in the Parking Lot in Gary, Indiana?
So Lunch in the Parking Lot, we named it that this year. We invented that. You're welcome, Gary.
Yeah, love it.
It was something that the missionaries had actually done last year in Gary. So we were invited to do it by Father Mike at the Gary Cathedral. And we had it in the Gary Cathedral parking lot. So the center of the city, right in the middle of Gary, one of the only few functioning churches left.
Oh, wow.
The Gary Cathedral I didn't see any other churches like it. There were many ruins of churches like it, or even more beautiful, but it was one of the few that was still functioning and running in the city. if not one of the only ones. And so, yeah, they have a nice big parking lot. And so, yeah, they had great success with it last year. And it was the Friars there was their idea. Was it 60 people they said last year, Fenton, something like that. Like they had 60 people come, and it was a one-time thing. They sent out flyers. But just on that one couple hour event, they had 60 people come. And this year it was even more. It was like 80.
Yeah.
So consistency, it'd been a year since they'd done it, but, we got even more people this year. And I was a little skeptical when we first were planning it, just because, because I was like, are people really gonna, if they don't know us, because like at our Lunch in the Park in Denver and Philly, we have a reputation, we have consistency, and we don't have that. Like, who's gonna want to show up for a one-time thing on an afternoon that we advertised only the day before?
Very good reason to be skeptical, by the way.
Right.
For anyone listening, that makes sense.
I was like, we should do it, but I wasn't really expecting much to come from it. I was blown away. Like, the number of people came was incredible. The people who came wanted to sit and chat. They didn't want to just get food and run. It didn't feel like a food line. It felt, like you were saying, Blake, it felt like a community thing that we were doing together.
Yeah.
And people from my street route that I had met over the 3 weeks came. So we got to see them. We sit down and chat with them for longer periods of time than we usually got. And we had volunteers. So we had young adult volunteers from the local community come as well.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So we had the Friars, we had the missionaries, we had locals in Gary, we had young adults from the diocese. So it was a very diverse crew that came together. It was one of my favorite Lunch in the Park style experiences I've had in my 2 years. The sense of community, the friendliness, the rawness of it. Like, there was a lot of people there who were suffering, who were there for the food, and you could tell that they really needed it. But at the same time, how they showed up and we showed up, and how it became just this incredible ease and incredible depth of relationship for the time that we spent there. There was one lady who I sat next to for maybe 45 minutes and just chatted with her, one older lady, and she was like, "Do you want to be my pen pal?" And she wrote down her
I didn't know that.
She wrote down her address so that I could send her a letter.
Wow.
And so now I have pen pals. An old lady in Gary wants to be my pen pal. And she was so good. So it was just many stuff like that. I'm sure, Fenton, you have your own experiences from the park, but
yeah, no, it was kind of what you said. The
Parking lot. Parking lot.
Yeah. But yeah, very similar to what you said. It was maybe even I would say the best Lunch in the Park I've had. It was incredible. I didn't know what to think. I didn't want to put expectations on anything because they were talking about a big amount of people showing up. But I was like, okay, yeah, sure.
And you
we'll
both
see.
were skeptical.
Yeah.
You both were classic Friars, know what's up. And
we were there. We had passed out flyers 2 days before, and 50 of them, and that was it. That was all the advertisement we had. We kind of mentioned it to people on the streets, but we did really not think anyone was going to show up. But it was an incredible success. And yeah, it was really just sitting down with people. I had probably an hour and a half long conversation with this group of people. We were just talking about movies the entire time. Talking
I love that.
Spider-Man, stuff like that. But it really, we were just, talking, shooting the breeze, but it really turned deeper, I'd say. This one guy I was talking to, he was like, "Man, I appreciate this. It's been a while since someone's taking the time to listen to me and to talk with me." He's like, "And I'm a talkative guy, but usually I'm not, because usually I don't think people want to hear what I have to say, but here's a space for me to share myself to other people." I'm paraphrasing, but it was something similar along those lines. But it was a beautiful experience, and just I don't know, really told it was a testament to the community in Gary. They have a lot of people who really long that community and are very similar in persistence and wanting to stay there. And we just gave them a space to be able to kind of come together and then create a wildfire.
A space with the right disposition.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? As you share that, it's that man, I'm sure he wanted to share so much more at many other moments of his life. But he didn't think someone was willing to listen. Right. And the space that allows for the disposition, and of course, if you go there and you're not interested, people pick up on that.
Yeah.
But just having these spaces where it's yeah, you can come, just hang out, no expectations. You never know what's going to happen with a proper disposition. So you think Fenton, he saw in you, he's like, "Hey, these people want to listen. These people care."
Yeah, we were having a real conversation, and we were asking questions. He was asking questions to me too, and I'm assuming just walking by someone on the street, usually that's not how it's going to be, especially in Gary, because people just they're not looking for that conversation most of the time, So giving that space, just having a table with food next to you, it's
not just Gary, right? Not just Gary, and it could be one where Gary maybe longs for these deep conversations more than other communities, but that's so normal,
Oh yeah.
right? It's so normal in society, in this reality. And it's just so, and again, we're not ignorant of the issues in Gary, right? Like neither of you are. It's not like, oh yeah, this community, there's no reason for its bad reputation. It's like, no, it's rough to look at. There's some rough stuff that goes on there, but just seeing the goodness of the people, right? The goodness of the people. Are there any other stories from ministry that come to mind for you two?
Well, yeah, I have one. Maybe one of my favorite memories in the street thus far. It was actually the first day we were out. We went inside the shelter. You know, we were talking to some people, just having like a normal day. And yeah, once again, people were pretty kind of foreign to us. People were letting us in a little bit, but like there was kind of definitely like boundaries there in a way where we weren't being let in fully because no one really knew who we were.
Yeah.
But we were like about to leave because like we didn't have anywhere else to go, no one else to talk to. We're like, all right, let's just go home. And so we were like exiting the building, and I remember I saw a woman to my left who I'd seen come in and ask for food and like kind of shoot off a little bit, and she looked like really sad. So I was with my street team partner, Emily. She was one of our saucers, and I was like, hey, let's just go and like see if she needs anything, see if we can talk to her. And so I went over there and we sat down next to her and just asked like, how are you doing? And suddenly she just started sharing like everything, all these like traumatic events that had happened to her. She'd seen a person die just a few weeks earlier. Had a lot of difficulties that I won't get into, but we were like just listening to her for like 10 minutes. And at one point she kind of just turned and looked at us and was like, why'd you come and say hi? Why'd you come and talk to me? And I didn't know what to say. So I was just like, you looked sad. And she kind of just started breaking down in front of us. And yeah, just sharing more and more. And I don't know, it was a very powerful experience, just like in general, but especially for me. Because it was like a symbol of my own brokenness, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at this woman and I saw no difference between her and I. And she looked very ragged. You could tell she hadn't eaten in a while. She was very skinny and crying, and like just her brokenness was very apparent, and it was very external, whereas mine was very much internal. But I just saw like total equality between us two. And I asked if I could pray with her. And she like said yes, grabbed my hand, and we said a prayer together. And it was one of the most like powerful encounters of my life. We prayed basically just like, that the Lord would show us that suffering wasn't what we were made for. That he would give us the grace to enter into his resurrection. And I was saying this prayer like for her, but it was also for me as well.
Totally.
You know? It was like just this moment of communion where it wasn't me like helping someone else, lifting my hand out, you know, and like helping them to where I am, but actually just like recognizing where I am, where she is, and the fact that we're in the same spot.
That's one thing with the poor, right? And our friends on the street can't hide. Right? The homeless, those in poverty, like their brokenness, they can't hide via makeup or clothes or a job or a career or extracurriculars, you know? And I think that's something where it's just a common theme that we see is like, oh my gosh, like they had a rough night last night. We can see it on their face. Me, if I had a rough night or, you know, a tough day yesterday, it's like, okay, I can hide. I can take a good shower. You know, I don't wear makeup, but do my hair nice, you know, it's like put on some nice clothes, make myself feel better, or, you know, and just like hide. And our friends, man, they can't, but it's a gift to them and us. Right? It's not oh, that's so sad they can't hide. It's not sad, actually. Right? It allows them to be seen. And I love that, Fenton. Like, frankly, the boldness to say you look sad. Well done. Clearly a little inspired moment by the Holy Spirit there. Because even as you're like, you hesitate as you're like, do I say it or do I not? You look sad, you know, it's like, but just knowing that's what, it's okay. You know, and it's like, it's okay. So good. Thanks for sharing it. Olivia, how about you on the streets?
One of my favorite memories from ministry in Gary actually happened at lunch in the parking lot. It was toward the end. So most of the people had gone, and I went over and I sat down with one of my street teammates, our summer of service missionary, Liz. And she was sitting next to somebody that she'd met earlier, and he was eating slowly. He was kind of bent over his plate, just kind of, he wasn't really talking. It wasn't really engaging much. He didn't lift his eyes off the table, but she and I were just kind of sitting with him. And yeah, so we had the lunch in the park setup was still going. So we still had the food over there, and we still had music playing in the background, and Ernie was on aux.
Ernie was on aux
Ernie
means
was on
Ernie
aux.
was the DJ of the moment.
Yes, she was running the playlist that was playing from the speaker. And I can't remember how this started. I think maybe Liz knew this man, but she invited him to pick a song from our playlist, and so he started to sing along with the track that was playing from the speaker. And the change in this man, like after he heard the music and he started to sing, like I can't even describe it. So first off, he was incredibly talented. He was like a slightly older man, missing most of his teeth. Yeah, very just kind of closed off. His body language was very closed. And as soon as he started to sing, he sat up, like his eyes opened. He started moving and like looking at us in the eyes. And his voice was so beautiful. Like he was a very, very talented singer, and not just naturally. Like you could tell, like he knew how to sing. Like he was professional. And you would have never known that he had this talent, this beauty. At least from looking at him, you would have not known that. And so he shared that with us, and he sang maybe 2 or 3 songs.
Oh, so he kept going,
just singing over, over the songs that were going. And it was so beautiful because it was both an opportunity for us to receive this gift of like his talent, his passion, his performing ability. And then a gift for him because it just totally changed the way that he was in relation to us. Like, while he was singing and then after he sung, like he was a totally different man. He was engaged. He was looking at us in the eyes. He seemed like so much more himself.
Yeah.
And so we just sat there for like 15 minutes listening to him sing around this table. And it was like, I was just relishing that moment. Cause I was like, when, I'm never going to receive this gift again, right? I'm never going to get to hear this man, probably never going to get to hear this man sing again. And who knows how long it will be before he has people who are willing to sit and listen to him sing. And it was just an incredible, just left a deep, just like feeling of like gratitude and awe again, I think about the nature of our ministry that allows these sort of things to happen, that allows the space to be created for gifts to be given both ways, not just a food line, but a true moment of encounter.
Giving him a space to share his talents and gifts, right? Not just a place where we can say, hey, look at our talents and gifts. No, that's not the purpose. A moment where we say like, we want to create an atmosphere where it's like, this man feels free to share the gifts the Lord has given him to us. And we get to just rejoice in it and soak it in, and we don't owe him anything back. It's like, and for the listener, Olivia is an excellent musician, so she really actually knows what she's talking about here. If I was to say that means he at least hit some notes. But for you, that's a big deal.
Sure.
I just love that. I love that. And as you said, he became more alive. He became more himself.
Did.
You could see that it wasn't just like, he needed that. It was a gift to you, and he needed it. Right. And we talk about this all the time at Christ in the City of like, Gaudium et Spes, man fully finds himself through a sincere gift of himself. Like we long to give of ourselves. And that's why when we interact with our friends on the street, the poor, whoever the Lord puts in front of us, like letting them give to us too.
Absolutely.
Letting them give to us too, and not just a one-way street. That's not friendship, right? That's not relationship. That's a handout. Like we're going for encounter here.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. How was your interactions? So switching tones here. Gary, in the greater Gary community, which is all the cities outside, right? Like so many people care so deeply about Gary. What was your experience with the locals outside of Gary as well? I know the diocesan support and everything like that.
Yeah. Do you want to share first about your experience with coming in cold, Vinton?
I mean, yeah, sure. I don't know if I have like anything that comes to mind immediately, but it was really beautiful actually to see how people welcomed us. The amount of volunteers, the amount of people who just knew of Christ in the City who were willing to help us. One person, Israel in particular, really struck me. He lived a little bit outside of where we were living in Michigan City, and he invited us to his garage to get supplies, and that's all we knew. And we were like,
It's very
okay,
mysterious.
Wow, that's it. All right, here we go.
yeah, but the other missionaries are gone, and they trusted us. We're like, all right, let's see how this goes. It was you, me, and Miriam who went,
Yep.
right? And we just showed up, and we were like, we have no idea what this is going to be like. But he invited us into his house, and we were sitting on his couch, and we had like probably just a 20-minute conversation with him about Christ in the City. And he was sharing with us how much he loved Christ in the City and how like how much he wanted to support us and like the great work that we do. And like the entire time he's like kind of like praising us and affirming us. But like I'm looking at him and I'm like, you are doing the exact same thing right now. Like he was really just like, it was such an inspiration to me where it's like, this isn't just Denver. This isn't just like one thing. Christ in the City is not just like itself. It is so much bigger,
Yep.
not even just like in our mission and stuff like that, but like the way that the Lord works through every single person. Everyone can recognize this need for community, this desire they have for community, and this desire to give it to other people and to help people to give it to others as well. So we ended up leaving with a ton of shampoo, which you actually still have in the men's wing now. We have no shampoo here.
Big deal. That's very helpful.
Oh yeah. But yeah, he gave us all the supplies to give to people in the streets. But most importantly to me, he just like shared himself with us.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing to see.
Well, Fenton, Olivia, thank you so much. The Diocese of Gary, our Gary folks, our Gary people, and all the locals who made this happen. Thank you so much. Such a gift.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys both. To all those listening, God bless you. And yes, hope that these two shared some wisdom. I know they did with me that I look forward to implement. Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Blake.
thanks, Blake.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Homeless But Human today. In order to keep producing this content for you all, we invite you to consider joining our known and loved monthly giving community. This is one of the most impactful ways that you can join us on mission. Your monthly gift sends missionaries out to the streets day after day and helps us to continue recording and sharing our podcast. It's our vision that every city not only has soup kitchens and shelters, but communities who are committed to helping the homeless know that they have a home in us. And what is home but a small taste of Christ's infinite love? Visit christinthecity.org and make a monthly gift today to join our known and loved community. And if you enjoyed today's episode, do us a favor and go hit subscribe and leave a review. To get more involved with the mission, visit christinthecity.org.